Kia ora koutou. Today we've got my Yanagiba here. It's got a bit of a chip on the top. The tip is just completely gone. Why? Because my coworker accidentally dropped it. Um, was I mad? Not too much. I'm cool with him. He was very apologetic about it. But anyways, we got to fix this. So let's get to it. I'm gonna try and fix the tip, which I already done a little bit of, and I'm also just gonna give it a little sharpening too while I'm at it, eh? Because I gotta make sure the whole thing is sharpened properly because I made some mistakes before and I need to correct them. So to start with, in order to get our tip back, rather than sharpen from the blade side, like where the edge is, we actually need to sharpen from the spine and bring it to now where the blade ends at the top, which will ensure that we keep the profile of our knife the same and we don't mess up the spine, so it should still cut and feel the exact same. And as well as that, we also do it on the side of the stone since it's kind of a weird thing to do to your stone, like such a fine point instead of like a whole side of a blade. So this will fuck up our stone a lot less. Okay, so as you can see here, the back of the knife, the spine, has basically reached the edge to form the tip, but well, as well as sharpening it, we've also got to correct a little bit of the blade profile. Because if you look really closely, you can see that the metal on the bevel has a dark spot, which means it's been oxidized, which we can infer from that means that it has not been taken off during sharpening, during previous sharpenings. And if this continues, it'll result in a slightly thicker or taller spot of the blade, and or a protruding bit of metal that hasn't been taken off. So we've got to go back now and correct it and make the entire bit of the bevel here all flush together so that it can easily cut through and slide through objects. As you can see here, good progress. The bevel is starting to become a flush singular surface without a spot that hasn't been taken off, thankfully, which will allow us to preserve the shape of the knife, as I said before. And also, it just looks better. It just looks better. But obviously, we've also got to make sure we sharpen the tip that we've formed and that it still isn't out of proportion with the rest of the knife as well. So yeah, we're just doing our finishing little touches on the tip here, and now we should be ready to get started with sharpening the whole knife together so that we can have one consistent edge down the whole length of our Yanagiba for good consistent cutting. But as well as that, as you can see here, the heel, it's a little tall, so I can't get it all off today, but I'm going to get started on getting that heel off by focusing more of my sharpening at the base of the knife and doing comparatively slightly less higher up the knife, and then continue doing that for the next few sharpenings until it is back to a good height. So this is something important to note about sharpening knives, at least from a Japanese style perspective. Obviously, in this style, we do individual segments of a knife instead of the whole knife at once, which also means when you normally sharpen it, you've got to do it equally each side, each part, so it doesn't end up uneven. Of course, since we're overworking one part to fix it, we've also got to go back and do the rest of the blade to make sure that we don't end up with some really fucked up edge going on where the tip is incredibly short or the heel is incredibly tall, which, as I said, is what has happened to my knife. And just one extra little note about sharpening single bevel Japanese knives specifically. when you sharpen them, you know, everyone says you got to sharpen on the shinogi, which is the bevel, obviously, on the side. But actually, the shinogi line is the top line, and then from down there is the bevel. But that bevel is actually two different angled bevels that have been slightly merged together. So what you actually have to do is you need to sharpen the top of the bevel, then the bottom of the bevel, and then you've got to blend it together. And then afterwards, you've also got to add your micro bevel to increase the strength of the edge so that it doesn't chip easily. So yeah, if you don't do that, you will fuck up the blade profile of your knife as well, and that's something you should really watch out for because not a lot of people mention it enough, I think. Alright, so as you saw from the previous clip, we've blurred together the two different angled bevels on the shinogi, and now we've got to do the micro bevel, which is basically just a really tall angled edge. And what this does is it makes the edge a lot stronger, so it's more resistant to chipping, and honestly, I find it slightly sharper. It just sharpens really quickly for me. But you've only got to do like a really small amount of sharpening the knife at a higher angle to get your micro bevel. Because if you overdo it, then you're just making a whole new big bevel, and that's going to mess with how the knife works. So yeah, we just do a tiny bit and obviously test to see if there's a burr. And then from here, we're going to move on to sharpening, or I guess smoothing rather, the uruoshi, which is the back of the knife. So basically with the uruoshi, you need as flat of a stone as you can as possible. That's why everyone always says you need a flat stone for a single bevel knife, because we are doing a flat surface basically. Well, it's actually concave, but what's going on is that we need to equally take away from both corners of the back of the knife to leave the concave center, but still, you know, take off the burr and also the other side of the metal on the spine of the knife, so that it's still in line with each other. Because if we only take away the burr, then slowly we're going to lose the concave surface, and we're going to end up with a kind of weird, like, you're going to have the spine, and then it's going to, like, half curve, and then there's going to be an edge there, which would not really work that well, and would probably ruin the knife completely. Okay, yeah, and here we go. Got the whole knife sharpened, and as you can see, it cuts the paper pretty well, I'd say. Could be a lot better, but I'm not putting all that time in right now. It's 12 AM. I've had enough. I also sharpened a lot of the knives too, so I can't be bothered, honestly. But as you can see, the reason we do the paper test is because since paper is so weak, a dull knife would not cut the paper, but rather tear it. And as you can see, it's cutting without that much tearing of the paper, which means the knife is sharp enough for me, because this is as much as I will care to do tonight. So yeah, that's about it. Cheers for coming into the first proper video on my second channel. If you like the video, remember to like and subscribe and all that stuff, and yeah, I'll keep that notified though. I'm out.